exactly. And the strangest thing is that, or one of the very remarkable things in the phenomenon of mass formation is that the higher the level of education, the more vulnerable people become for mass formation. So this is a very strange thing. You would think that highly educated people would be resilient, that they have this skilled critical thinking ability, which is not true. Like Gustave Le Bon in the 19th century already wrote in his book, The Psychology of the Masses, of the crowd, the psychology of the crowd. He said, like, the higher the level of education, the more people will fall prey to mass formation. Something that was echoed by Jacques Ellul in his book Propaganda, the best book about propaganda that has ever been written, I think. He said exactly the same. He said, the longer people go to school, the more easily they will fall prey for propaganda. So just because he said, like Jacques Ellul said, that this had to do with the fact that education and our school system actually is a kind of indoctrination, unconsciously. That's not that teachers know consciously that they are indoctrinating children. No, it's just the educational system learns people not to think for themselves. It learns them to think all in the same way, which means it learns them to think according to the mainstream view on man and the world. And in this way, education becomes a psychological preparation, um, um, which makes people vulnerable for the propaganda that will be used later on in their lives. So that's one thing. So the higher the level of education, more easily they fall prey to it. And you can see it indeed in the example of the war in Ukraine. The war with Russia is an excellent example. I wrote 2 articles about it. I published them on my Substack page. One article where I go into the structure of Putin's Russia, which exactly Putin is not a saint. We know that. We know he's not a saint. I mean, and there are many problems with Russia, also at the level of free speech. But if you look from the other perspective, like what NATO did, then one thing for sure, NATO is also not a saint, and they have this expansionist politics, in which actually goes so far that I think, in my humble opinion, that there is no other choice for Putin and Russia than to go to war. Because if they don't, they will lose they won't be a superpower anymore. So and at the I it's so strange, like that an entire population really believes that Putin is this devil which has to be destroyed, or which threatens to destroy Europe, without ever being able to take the other perspective, and to see what happened in Ukraine, to see how American companies purchased like 30% of all the 30% of the country, and so on and so on. It was so that's what mass formation does.
And no number of counter arguments will ever help. You know, the first person I interviewed on my channel 4 years ago was Jack Matlock, the last US ambassador to the Soviet Union. And he kept saying, like, this is our mistake. We should never have done that. And he's like just one in a long line of people who said, like, we must not push this war on the Russians. It was pushed and it became a war. And it has been a war for 4 years. And even though all of these revelations came out, including the way in which the CIA had been infiltrating, you know, according to this New York Times, not some conspiracy theorist magazine, the New York Times, how the CIA after 2014 had been infiltrating Ukraine and been starting to build up Ukraine as a bastion against the Russians and forward capabilities. How it was the UK and the United States that sabotaged the Istanbul Agreement. All of this is out, confirmed from several sides. Yet, if you bring it up, the people who are under the grip of mass formation, they will get angry.
The higher the level of education, the more vulnerable people become for mass information. So this is a very strange thing.